I'm just going to go ahead and get started. We have a really packed agenda and two guests from the township staff, and so I'd like to begin. On behalf of Councilor Bill Harrison and myself, right over here, we want to welcome you to the latest at-large councilor meeting, community meeting. This is, I think, the fifth or sixth one that I've done thus far, and I'm happy to be back in Ward 1. I know that there are some people who had wanted to come, but there are some accessibility issues with the stairs. So for the next one, I'm going to be looking for another public space that's accessible. But in the meantime, so I apologize for that. But I do want to say that this is being recorded, and the recording, as always, with all of the community meetings, are going to be available on the YouTube, Montclair YouTube TV 34 channel. Next slide. So, as you can see, I just want to say a couple of things before we launch into our first presentation. There's a sign-up sheet going around. There's a clipboard. I think it's right in the back, behind, yes. And so if you would like to stay in touch and informed when I launch my monthly newsletter, please sign in with your email and or phone number, and I will add you to the mailing list. There's also a cart in the bag. No, I can't see it. Anyway, there's a cart with wheels on it, and there are a few flyers that you can take with you. Oh, back there. Yes, right by Abraham Lincoln. One of the flyers has information and the link and a QR code if you want to sign up for to receive alerts from the township by email. And so we're really trying to put out as much information as possible via the website, the website, social media. But for those who aren't on social media, you can also opt to get alerts and really important information by email. So please do sign up for that if you haven't already. There's also a flyer. It's in English. There's one flyer in English and the other one is in Spanish, and it's for the community health survey. So, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about that later, but please do pick up whatever information you'd like from that card next to Abe. So without further ado, we're going to have Mr. Marks, who is the township manager. He's been with us since last April officially. We're going to have Mr. Marks discuss the municipal finances and budget, since we are getting ready to have the 2026 budget introduced at the next scheduled council meeting on March 17th. Originally it was supposed to be March 10th, but we had to change it because of the special schools election, which I believe is still happening next week, but we'll see. And then Jake Neiman, who is our there he is right there. He's our fantastic Complete Streets Director. He's going to do a presentation on street safety initiatives, and then we'll go on to our council presentation. So without further ado, I'd like to have Mr. Marks come up.
Thank you, Susan. So good evening, everybody. My name is Stephen Marks. I'm the township manager. So give me one moment. It's not a surprise. It shouldn't come as a surprise to anybody in this room that Montclair's taxes are high. So the Star Ledger just came out with a report. This was from February 11th, where they did an assessment, state of New Jersey and the Star Ledger using state data ranked. There's approximately 565 towns in New Jersey, 1 through 565 in terms of average residential property tax burden. So Montclair actually came in number 13 on the list. So according to 2025 data, the average residential property taxes in Montclair was $22,487, and the average property value, and this is based on, I'll get into it later in the presentation, basically our ratio for home values is lower, thus we have to do a reval. But the average residential property value was at $639,000. So this is the same as the board over there. How are your property tax dollars a portion. So out of every property tax dollar that you spend, approximately, the school tax levy is approximately $145 million, which is essentially 57% of your tax dollars, or 57 cents on every tax dollar goes to the schools. The county tax levy is approximately $39.7 million, which means approximately 15.66 cents out of every property tax dollar goes to the county. The municipal portion is approximately 24.68%, or less than a quarter of every local property tax dollar. The municipal portion, the tax levy, was for last year approximately $62.5 million. So approximately 1/4, or 25% of your property tax dollar is going towards the municipal, functioning of the municipal government, police, fire, DPW, etc. If anybody wants a closer, afterwards, you could spend more time looking at the board up here, but this slide is essentially the same as the board. So looking at the 2026 budget, last year the Montclair for its employee health benefits was using a thing called the New Jersey State Health Benefits Plan. So the state of New Jersey, many counties, many municipalities, not everybody used or uses the New Jersey State Health Benefits Plan. It's a very generous health plan. It's something that was negotiated between bargaining units and local governments in the state of New Jersey many years ago, and it's usually contained within labor contracts. So it's something that was bargained, and it's something that we have to abide by. Essentially, if we leave the state health benefits plan, we have to provide a mirror plan, or equal to or better. So the state of New Jersey Department of the Treasury released its premiums on July 9th, 2025. They came out and they announced their premiums that the state health benefits plan costs for 2026, employee health benefits, were going up by 36.5%, just for the year. Actuaries from across the state of New Jersey, who spend time analyzing these things, are projecting further increases in the state health benefits plan of 40%, 50%, 60%, I'm not exaggerating, you can look it up to 60% in future plan years, 27, 28, 29. Based on this, it was incumbent for us to get out of the state health benefits plan. So we spent a fair amount of time during the later course of last year looking for alternatives to the state health benefits plan. We found an Aetna fully insured plan. The state health benefits plan doesn't give you a lot of customer data. So it's a black box, and you're flying blind essentially. So we went with a fully insured plan. For this budget year, there's not much of a differential between the Aetna fully insured plan and the state health benefits plan, but we're projecting the more data we get on utilization and loss ratios, the more opportunities there will be for savings in future years, and we'll be avoiding the cost, those 40, 50, 60% price hikes that are expected in the state health benefits plan. So what did we know and what did we do about it? This came out on this rate increase came out on July 9th, 2025. It was released. So on September 15th last year, based on some of the information that we had gotten and the projected increases, we instituted a hiring freeze for the municipal government. We also, by state statute, every department head is supposed to provide their budget requests to the town manager in November every year. So I directed each of the department heads to come up with 3 budget scenarios, including one with a 5% normal operating scenario, one frozen at 2025 levels, and then one with a 5% reduction, 26 over 25, 5% less than 25. So in November, we went through, as state statute requires, each of the department heads, and this was broadcast on local public access, each of the department heads came up with their budget presentations and proposals. Municipal budgeting in the state of New Jersey is, I think it's probably the only state that, or the state with the strictest oversight by state government. So every municipal budget has to be submitted to the New Jersey Department of Community Affairs, Division of Local Government Services, and Local Finance Board for approval. The state of New Jersey, this is a local finance notice, basically two municipalities, issued by the state of New Jersey, two municipalities with guidance on budget preparation for 2026. This happened to come out, this guidance came out in December of 2025. So there's two laws that really affect budgeting for municipalities. One puts a 2% cap on the tax levy. That was instituted, I think, in 2011. And the second puts a 2.5% cap on appropriations. So there's a 2% cap on how much you could raise through taxation, and then a 2.5% cap on how much you could actually spend. So there are several budget documents or financial documents that we have to prepare and submit and put on record and file. One is the annual debt statement, which is here. This presentation is also on the town's website, so anybody who's interested in any of the particulars, you can go to our website and find all this information. So the first that's due by the end of the year is the annual debt statement. The second, which is due by March 10th every year, is the annual financial statement. It basically outlays what your cash position is, how much you ended the year with, whether, you know, you're not supposed to end it in deficit, but, you know, what your cash position is for the municipality. That will be prepared and submitted, or prepared and posted and submitted to the state by March 10th. We also, this wasn't originally prepared, some of you have probably heard about this. Last year we had budgeted for 77 firefighters, and there was some concern about what the right size. I've only been here for less than 12 months, a little over 11 months. When I came in last year, there was some concern by the community and members of the council about right-sizing the fire department. I had no idea what that meant, right? So what is the right size? 10 years ago, the fire department was about 87 firefighters. Last year, when I started, it was about 70 firefighters. The request by the fire department through the budgeting process was for 77 firefighters. We budgeted 277 firefighters, but I don't know what the right size of the fire department was. So we actually went out, we hired a professional consulting firm made up of two principals. One was Matt Watkins, former city manager for City of Clifton, former business administrator from Bloomfield. He worked briefly in Trenton for the Division of Local Government Services. His partner was Chris Cotter, who is a retired fire chief from the City of Summit in Union County. He was also the city manager for the City of Summit in Union County. So they both brought, they're both retired, and they both brought a wealth of experience in both municipal management and fire science. So we contracted with them before the state health benefits planned increases. We contracted with them in May of 2025. It was an iterative process. They did a lot of investigation, interviews, looking at the finances and looking at response times for the fire department. They had a working draft by December, and they finalized the draft. This is also posted online. For anybody who's interested in fire department administration, it's a great document. How do fire departments work, you know, in the state of New Jersey and across the country. So the copy of the fire department study was given to the mayor and council on or about January 15th of this year, a couple months ago. But in light of the 36.5% increase in health benefits, I didn't tell you before, the town has in 2025, the town had a $107 million budget. Of that $107 million, approximately $10 million was for employee health insurance. That 36.5% increase equates to about a $3.6 million increase. There's different debits and credits, but essentially that's the number. That is that's not a small increase. That is a sizable increase. So to avoid hemorrhaging money, we've instituted the hiring freeze, and we're working with all of the departments to basically institute savings across the board. On February 5th, one of the things that the fire study said that we could do was that if the town instituted a thing called automatic aid, which is similar to mutual aid with neighboring jurisdictions, it was one way of supporting, buttressing our local fire department. There's an automatic aid agreement between Bloomfield Township, Nutley, and Belleville, where if they have a certain level of fire, all three departments are going out at the same time. So if we instituted automatic aid, if we brought back an auxiliary service. So years ago, Montclair actually had auxiliary firefighters. So if we reinstituted an auxiliary service to support and increase the ranks of the fire department, that was another way of basically having to avoid the pain point of hiring that many additional firefighters. One of the other things that we, for purely financial reasons, that we did was we lowered the table of organization from, well, the table of organization 10 years ago was about 87. We were down to 70 firefighters. Due to recent retirements, we're down to about 67. We're going through the hiring process now. But again, what is the right size of the department? It was determined in consultation with the fire chief and the fire department. We're going to settle on 70 firefighters, but the minimum daily staffing, we're going to lower from 16 to 14 individuals. So if there's 5 apparatus, which includes 3 fire engines and 2 ladder trucks, and if there's insufficient staffing due to vacations and other absences, it doesn't mean that the 5th apparatus or the 2nd ladder truck is permanently taken out of service. But if there are not enough firefighters to staff the 2nd truck, then that second ladder truck will be taken out of service. Why are we doing that? It is estimated that by doing that, and we will continue to monitor response times and make sure that the fire department is operating in a safe manner. But by doing that, we will save that there's a min and a max. So the minimum savings by doing that is going to be about $400,000, and the maximum savings would be about $1.5 million on an annualized basis. Because we're already in a couple months into the year, it's going to be less than that. We are also, if we did nothing but pass on the cost of living, not the cost of living adjustments, if we did nothing but pass along the health insurance increases and the cost of living adjustments and the other increases to the budget, it would be about a 10% tax increase on the municipal levy. We don't think that's a non-starter. So what are the ways? We are thinking about ways of actually reducing departmental costs and departmental operations. This is one of the things that we're doing to actually save money with regard to the fire department. We will be instituting other cost-saving measures across all departments. It's not just something that is being meted out on the fire department. So these were the general revenues. I don't expect you to see this here. It is in the PowerPoint presentation, which is on the website. We did a 5-year look back of how much the town spends per department. These are revenues. Basically,
Are we holding our questions until the end of the presentation?
would you like questions during or at the end?
Maybe at the end of the presentation, please.
Okay. So we did a 5-year look back on revenues. It shouldn't be any surprise, and there's a graphic to demonstrate this. The single largest portion of revenue comes from local property taxes. So this is a graphic that represents that. So $62.5 million of the town's budget comes from the property tax levy. Other sources of revenue, approximately $9 million. Second comes from pilots, payment in lieu of taxes, cable TV, franchise fee, hotel tax, etc. Surplus. So we have our cash balance. The Government Finance Officers Association, which is a national association, recommends having at least 2 months of cash reserves on hand. That translates into about 16.66%. So our cash balance for 2025 was about $15 million, so we're right in the sweet spot. That actually impacts your bond rating, if you ever, your credit worthiness. So we actually have a AAA bond rating, which is very good. We can't do better. And having a cash surplus that we do, basically allows us to pay our bills without having to borrow money through like tax anticipation notes or other borrowing to pay our bills, make payroll and pay contractors. The next allocation or the next source of revenue is local school district tax. So as everybody I'm sure knows, Montclair was a type 1 school district. So we actually, a portion, we're still paying off debt service from when the town was a type 1 school district. So in 2025, there's approximately $7.7 million. Fees, fines, and permits was about $5.5 million. The library tax, it's set by formula, was about $3.8 million, and state aid was about $3 million. There's a variety of sources. The point I'm trying to get across, there's a variety of sources, but the vast majority of the local budget, the municipal budget, comes from local property taxes. So we also did a 5-year look back on appropriations by department. This is where the departmental operations go. So approximately 35% of the municipal appropriations by department goes to the police department, about 21% goes to the fire department, and then everything else from garbage pickup to parks and recreation to engineering and road resurfacing is everything else that's in the upper hand. It should be noted that this is just for two items, salary and wages and other operating expenses. The fire department and the police department are both, all the members are enrolled in what's called the Police and Firemen's Retirement System. It's their pension system with the state of New Jersey. That's an additional, I think it's $7 million on top. And this also does not include health benefits for public safety personnel. So there, in the budget also is statutory, unclassified, and miscellaneous appropriations. That includes our debt service, and this is for anybody who's interested in diving deep into the municipal finances. The PFRS, Police and Fire Retirement System, went from $6.5 million in 2020 up to $8 million in 2025, et cetera, et cetera. And this is what it looks like on a pie chart. Salaries and wages are the single largest expense for municipal operations at about $41.6 million. Other operating expenses are second at $22.5 million, followed by debt service, the PFRS pensions, school debt service at $7.8 million, I told you about before, and employee group health benefits. This particular number that says $7 million is prorated. New Jersey has a thing called Chapter 78 where all public employees are expected to contribute towards their health benefits. So last year the employee health benefits spend was about $10 million. The employee contributions were about $1 million. We also have 3 utilities. We have a water utility, a sewer utility, and a parking utility. Any of the employees within those utilities, actually, so if you're paying for parking meters or you're paying your water and sewer bill, it's prorated for those utilities to actually pay for the employee group health benefits for the employees of those utilities. And again, the library was set last year at about $3.8 million. It's set by formula. For this year, we just got the numbers, and it's going to be about $4.2 million. We don't set the funding formula. It's set by the state of New Jersey, but the escalation in the library budget is up by about $400,000 this year. So the budget schedule, we did the annual debt statement by January 31st. The financial statement is due March 10th. This has actually been updated. I spoke with our acting chief financial officer earlier today. We're expecting to do a budget presentation to the mayor and council on March 24th. And by state law, you have to introduce your municipal budget by either March 30th or the next available meeting. So I believe the next available meeting is April 7th, thereabouts. So we're expecting to actually introduce the budget on March 7th.
April 7th.
I'm sorry, April 7th, sorry. I was behind. Also, the town is going to be going through a property revaluation. The Essex County Board of Taxation, almost 2 years ago, ordered the Township of Montclair to actually do a property reval. What's that mean? Over the course of time, some properties go up in value, some properties go down in value. As people move in, move out, fix their homes up, etc. Over time, over a decade or more, property values change, right? So this is a state law, and every municipality in the state of New Jersey is required to do property revaluations at points in time. It usually has to do with your ratio of what your market value is to the assessed value. Like I showed you in one of the earlier slides, the average assessed value was $638,000 thereabouts. That's not the fair market value, so you want to make sure that your assessed value and your fair market value or your true value are as close as possible, and that's why municipalities do revals. And the Essex County Board of Taxation helped us along because they actually ordered, and they have done this for every municipality throughout Essex County. They're ordering us to do a reval. So we hired a company to update the tax maps. They're currently updating the tax maps. They have to submit the tax maps to the state of New Jersey Division of Taxation for approval. We're expecting all that to happen by probably the end of summer, beginning of fall. And then the assessors through the company that has been hired will actually start going out and making contact with homeowners and property owners throughout town. All of this, I'm not going to bore you with reading all of this. All of this is, and for anybody who's interested in how a property revaluation takes place, there's like frequently asked questions as part of the presentation, and you're more than welcome to take a look at it. So this I included for anybody who wanted to know more about Essex County Board of Taxation. I actually included the order as part of the order from the board with a resolution for anybody who's interested. Signed by the Board of Taxation and the County Tax Commissioner. More information. All right, so in terms of the reval, the last reval was completed in 2018. May 6, 2024, the Essex County Board of Taxation ordered us to conduct a new reval. I mentioned the tax maps. Property inspections will begin this fall after the tax maps are approved by the state of New Jersey. And the reval must be completed by October 1st, 2027. And new valuations will go into effect for the 2028 tax year. That is all I have. Actually, Lynn Stockheimer had a question in the back.
Thank you very much for your presentation, Mr. Marks. I really like people to think about that our local property taxes are such a large part of the revenue, and I think that we need to balance that when we're talking about Lackawanna and giving a pilot to BDP Holdings. And as to the fire department, if anybody has seen or attended and heard the testimony of the firefighters at the February 25th meeting about cutting the number of men per truck. I mean, firefighters, yes, thank you. It's very compelling, and we're talking about lives here more than dollars as far as I'm concerned, and many of us are concerned. And we're also getting the increased density with the overdevelopment in these high-rises. So to have fewer firefighters available, while we also have this shared service agreement with Glen Ridge, which I believe you failed to mention in your presentation, and I really think that should have been part of your presentation when you were talking about neighboring towns and a trio of towns who are together. You know, what are we doing about that? And I know that, you know, at this point that is in stone until it comes up again, but that's been many, many years.
So if I could just respond to that part. That was the Glen Ridge fire contract. So for those of you who don't know, the Township of Montclair provides fire services, basically fire department protection for Glen Ridge. Glen Ridge, we don't do it for free. There was a contract that was negotiated between the two towns, and Glen Ridge, I think it was last year, provided about $900,000 to Montclair for those services. I think this year we're anticipating about $1 million. The consultants through the study estimated the value of that contract is probably closer to $2 million. So we're getting the short end of the stick. I spoke with the Glen Ridge administrator yesterday, and we will be bringing it as an issue, you know, for discussions with Glen Ridge officials.
That's great. Is that something that's negotiable?
It's negotiable. We can't impose, right? We can't impose our will on neighboring towns. It's negotiable, but, you know, we're going to see if there's any room for negotiations there.
I'm real glad to hear that. Thank you.
So you were next, I'm sorry.
Oh, okay. So I recently moved, bought a house. We did an assessment already when we bought the house, and, you know, obviously the value went up because the last assessment was, as you said, 2018 or whatever. So are they gonna come reassess it again?
Every property in town will be visited. If you,
Isn't that a waste of money? Sorry.
it's by, you have to,
It's by
basically
law.
you have to, it's by law, you have to visit every home. The assessors or appraisers have to visit every home. If they are not able to get into your home, they're just going to assume, and they will make multiple attempts, right? At least 3 or 4 attempts. If a homeowner is not cooperative in terms of letting them into the home to just show the assessor or appraiser around, the assessor or appraiser are just going to assume that it's like the highest value fixtures, and that's really how it works. So it is incumbent on everybody as homeowners and property owners to make sure that when the appraisers come to your door, that you don't have to be welcoming
So I
per
should break
se.
a couple
but
of windows is what you're saying?
I wouldn't recommend doing that,
Okay.
right?
So,
But it just be
can't-
cooperative. I mean,
Alright.
and it just, yeah. So just be
Yeah,
cooperative.
I couldn't, no, I know, I'm just
It's
saying,
not-
like, I couldn't just send the assessment I already had and just send it and be like, hey, this was already done.
No, that's not how it works. And this is not, a property tax reval is not a way, because some people think it's just a way for the town to make additional money, right? In 2025,
Oh, it's not about that for me. For me, it's about...
No, I know,
like,
but
let's
for anybody
not
who's
waste
thinking
it.
that,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's just the way the taxes are apportioned. So in using 2025 as an example, the municipal portion was $62.5 million. That was the tax levy before. Now, it'll escalate because, it's not going to be done until 2028. So there will be some escalation involved, but discounting for the escalation, the tax levy will be the tax levy. It's not, by doing a rebound, we're not going to get an extra $10 million. It's a way of apportioning how much each property owner pays. So, yes, ma'am, you were.
Is it true that new developers get tax breaks?
Can you give her the mic? We're not going to be able to hear.
Would you like to take them?
Oh, sure.
If we can reach.
So is it true that the new developments or developers get tax breaks in Montclair?
You want to answer? I can take a crack at it. So the question was, is it true that developers get tax breaks in Montclair? So in the state of New Jersey, through the redevelopment process, if you have a duly adopted redevelopment plan and you designate a developer or a redeveloper to develop a project that is envisioned in line with the vision of the plan, they can apply for a financial agreement for a payment in lieu of taxes, right? A payment in lieu of taxes is something different. It's not your conventional taxes. Many times there are extraordinary costs with why is redevelopment even necessary? It's usually when you have a piece of blighted property, right? A property that has either environmental contamination or stormwater, problems and flood problems, or extraordinary traffic impacts and traffic challenges, or in the case of Lackawanna Plaza, there's the historic Lackawanna terminal. In the redevelopment plan, it was the municipality's vision, specifically the mayor and council as the governing body, it was their vision to preserve the Lackawanna terminal. So by addressing any environmental contamination, also affordable housing. So in the redevelopment plan, it called for the redevelopment to include 10% of affordable housing for low-income residents, 10% of affordable housing for moderate-income residents, and 10% affordable housing for what's called workforce housing, which is between 80 and 120% of mean household income, something like that. So those things don't come for free. Addressing any environmental contamination, preserving a historically sensitive or historically significant structure. They all have costs. Making extraordinary contributions to improve the traffic situation, both on your property and then immediately outside of your property. Making stormwater improvements. All of these, I don't have the number in front of me. All of these costs, even including 30% affordable housing for Montclair residents, I think it was over $10 million or $13 million worth of givebacks or improvements.
Yeah. I think the short answer, thank you, and thanks for the question. I think the short answer, excuse me?
You can't hear you, actually.
The short answer is not, if your question was, do all developers get tax breaks? And I think the short answer is no, but there are situations such as in the case of if a particular development is being treated as it's a redevelopment plan and it's being developed that way, such that all of these other quote-unquote give-backs are not typically required, then that is something that councils have considered or in the past given basically tax abatements. That's what they are to these developers in exchange for certain other benefits to the town. So Councilor Harrison, I don't know if you want to add anything to that.
And that does not mean that a redeveloper does not pay any taxes. The taxes on the land remain the same regardless. The taxes on the improvement receive, if the mayor and council ordain it or approve an application for a payment in lieu of taxes, they would pay lesser than conventional taxes, but they're still paying significantly more than what was, if you're taking a plot of land with a vacant piece of property with no improvements, no buildings on it, and you're putting something on a redevelopment project that's in vision with what the town wants, and there's extraordinary costs, it's a way for a redeveloper to recoup some of those costs for the affordable housing, for the historic preservation, for any environmental contamination, for any stormwater improvements that are necessary, for a traffic signal. If the town requires a redeveloper to install a traffic signal could be anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000. They're not going to do that out of the goodness of their heart, right? There's a financial incentive if they say, okay, we will pay for all these, extraordinary improvements, for the town, but in order to balance our books, we just need a break. And essentially, the town has hired, anytime you have to have a designated redevelopment area with a duly adopted redevelopment plan, and a developer who either has site control or owning the property, or somebody who is designated by the town in building out that redevelopment project and the vision of the municipality. There are extraordinary costs, and a pilot is a way of the redeveloper to recoup some of those extraordinary costs. Does that make sense?
So are we close to Lackawanna being developed?
So are we close to Lackawanna being developed? So this is where the council people.
And then part B is, and if so, will we be making money off that?
So we are going to address I'm going to give an update on the Lackawanna status, but do you want to wait until then or answer the question now? Answer the question.
He looks excited.
Okay, so there multiple obstacles to it proceeding. The council at its last meeting approved the redevelopment agreement. That redevelopment agreement requires that they go to the planning board for site plan approval by September. So before they can build anything, they need to get site plan approval from the planning board based on past Lackawanna hearings that's going to go on for multiple hearings. There's intense public interest. So probably, I would guess, best case for it being approved is a year from now, assuming they apply sometime near September. There is currently a challenge to the redevelopment plan that is pending in court. The briefs have been filed. They had oral argument before the judge. The judge promised a decision in a few weeks, which end of the month, April. Do not hold your breath for that to occur. The developer is unlikely to proceed until he gets a favorable ruling. If the court strikes down the redevelopment plan, I won't even begin to predict when anything's going to happen because the town, if there's an appeal of the trial court's decision either way, that's another year in the appellate division. Probably the developer would proceed if he wins at the trial level. The redevelopment plan is upheld, but you're looking under a best case scenario that it's going to be a year before construction starts. And worst case, you're probably talking a couple of years as everyone holds off if there are unfavorable rulings in court. And the planning board approval, based on the history here, that'll be challenged. And question...
Will we be making money off this?
Well, okay, so the property is being taxed now as it always has been taxed. The pilot does not kick in until there's a completed building. So the existing improvements on the property, the land, that tax continues until he starts knocking things down. The land tax stays the same forever until the project's completed, and then it'll be valued accordingly. But but pilot payments don't kick in until there's a completed building, and then it's based on the revenue the developer receives for that building. But until then, the current taxes will keep being paid, and they'll be subject to the revaluation if that occurs before they proceed with development.
Yes, ma'am, in the back.
Thank you, Councilor Shane Anderson and Harrison for hosting this. It's very, very helpful. Thank you, Mr. Marks, for your presentation. I have two questions that refer to tax. The first is that pie chart that you showed us about the taxes that go to municipality, to Essex County, to the Board of Education. How does that get divvied up? Does the Board of Education make a decision about, I'm not saying it should or shouldn't, I'm just asking, who makes a decision about how it's divvied up? If the Board of Education says we need $25 million this year, does that mean that the state and that the municipality and the county have to negotiate something else? Does the county tell us what we owe them? How does that work? That's one question. The other question is, it relates to, and it assumes that the state rises to that that the municipality increases, its spending doesn't increase by more than 2% every year. That cap, it's a cap on the tax levy, I guess, right?
There's two caps. One cap is on the tax, it's a 2% cap on the tax levy, and there's a 2.5 cap on spending.
Okay, so the tax levy, if either one of those questions with respect to the Board of Education is approved, we're all going to be paying more taxes, and I happen not to object to paying taxes. I think we need them for our town. But anyway, how does that increase that we may vote on for either the prior year's repayment or the current year, how does that work with the 2% tax levy?
It does. So the school taxes are the 2% cap is only on municipal spending and the municipal levy. So the 2% cap does not get applied to the county, to the library, or to the schools, right? So typically how...
I was going to say, my understanding from the presentations by the Board of Education is that 2% 2% tax levy does apply.
Okay, so the Board of Education has a separate cap, also 2%. Both of the caps have exceptions. They are different from the municipality to the Board of Education. To answer your first question, whatever budget the Board of Education approves, the township has to set a tax rate to fully fund that. It's not negotiable. They pass a budget, the tax rate is set, so that full amount of money is raised. If either or both of the referendum pass, then that will be incorporated into the tax rate as well, starting with presumably the August tax payment that would be.
Did you say the board sets a budget and we have to pay for it?
Correct.
Yeah. So,
That is when you switch to the current form of the Board of Education, they are totally independent. We have to pay whatever budget they adopted, as distinguished from the prior, where the Board of School Estimate, made up of 3 members of the council,
let me
voted
ask
on
a
it.
radical rhetorical question. Has the town council ever considered going back to the old Board of Estimate?
There is a time period when that can be done. That is up to the voters.
There's a what-year period?
I've been in a debate, but relatively soon it would be possible for people to do a petition to get a change in the type of Board of Education on the ballot,
council.
Okay, so we could go back.
if the voters approve that.
So mayor will appoint.
Yeah. Okay, so how does this tax increase that we think that we may have because of Board of Education?
Okay, so what you're voting on, to do the simple one, but it also applies to the others, just what you're voting on question 2 is to raise the budget that the Board of Education approved by $5 million. That then will get incorporated into the tax rate that's set.
And that's not going to run up against the 2% tax levy?
Now, that in effect, if things happen normally, the Board of Education, if they want to do more than their 2%, they can go to the voters and ask for approval to do that. That then, if the voters approve it, that then becomes the budget and gets incorporated in the tax rate.
That's very helpful.
Maybe just a couple more questions before we move on, and then we'll have time afterwards.
Yeah, on the,
It's okay about the mic.
going back to the fire department, I take it that Glen Ridge is not on the hook for covering any of the increase in the health benefits? No. Okay.
Why is that? Negotiated.
Okay, second question on
Talking to the mic, directly into the mic.
second question on the fire department. We had a fire on the street next to me the other day, and today there appeared a message on some, maybe Secret Montclair or someplace, where the Firefighters Foundation said, we're not going to clean up on this fire because of the cutbacks. Have you heard about that? And, what can be done about that? To me, that's outrageous.
I have not heard about that, and I'll have to investigate.
I'll show it to you afterwards.
Okay. Any more questions?
Yeah, I saw 2, right? We'll take, these are the
Last
last
2?
2.
I think one of the things people are struggling with is knowing when different tax increases are going to hit. So you said if I heard you right, 2028 is when we would see the increase post reevaluation?
That's for the reval. That's not necessarily a tax increase, but that's when the new property values would go into effect.
You could get lowered. You could get lowered.
Yes, you're right.
As a percentage.
You could. I don't think that's going to happen. But it could. Some people may.
It's a zero-sum game. So, some people's taxes will go up and some people's taxes will go down.
The
So
percentage would change.
the percentage would change.
The start of July. I guess I'm asking also because it has been hard to figure out, when, well, obviously we don't know what's going to happen with the vote next week, but say it does pass. Is there an estimate on when that will hit our tax bill?
I mean, typically,
Presumably August. That's my understanding, presumably August. August of this year, presumably, based on that vote.
I think we were dividing it into two multiple big chunks.
We'll have to get back to you on that.
Just a question on the pilot. On the pilot, you said the property is assessed and that all that money from the assessment goes into the schools. But the pilot, there's no money that goes into the schools. That money does not go into the school budget.
Not right now, but that is something that can be considered by the council.
But the land tax, we divided, you
With
know,
all the different departments,
Yes.
schools included. But the
pilot,
is not considered
the
part of.
pilot, 5% has to go to the county, the rest goes to the township. The township can decide to allocate some of that money to the schools.
So that's their slush fund.
No, I mean,
Okay,
as you saw in the budget presentation by the manager,
Yeah.
we're having budget
No,
problems with the
you're
pilot money.
building-
It's
you're working on
not,
that.
it's,
And I really
I wish
appreciate
we
the
had a
work you
slush
did.
fund that
I
we
do.
could go and deal with all the
I
problems.
appreciate all the effort and work you do. Thanks for not volunteering. Yeah, just to clarify.
Yes, in regard to the reevaluation, a number of years ago, I believe it may have been under the Ripson administration, when a reevaluation was done. They formed a committee of residents from each ward to make sure that the residents in each of the individual wards understood the reevaluation process, the scheduling, the expectation of what to expect when the inspectors came in. That might be something that this administration may consider, because you want to make sure people completely understand the process. And the young man indicated, and I don't want to put in this quote, you want to make sure that you provide the access to your property, because if you don't, they will automatically assess it at the market value, and that may be a disadvantage, because then you'd have to get into an appeal process to get that value reconsidered.
Okay. Yeah, we will definitely make sure that word is disseminated in multiple ways so people understand the revaluation, the importance of letting the inspector in your property, and your process of informally challenging the preliminary assessment. If you say, no, we didn't have 3 bathrooms, we only have 2 bathrooms, whatever. And then ultimately you can file a formal tax appeal if the amount that's chosen is lower, is higher than what you think it should be.
Okay, all right. Do you want the last word?
just one last word on pilots. So on slide 12, it actually has a 5-year look back on pilots, which is item G. So it's not like pilots or tax abated properties don't pay anything for the town. I think there are 9 tax abated properties in town. So in 2020, those 9 properties paid the town $6.85 million. And it's since escalated to, in 2025, those piloted properties, those tax abated properties, have paid the town over $9 million. So roughly 9 properties have paid over $1 million each in aggregate towards the municipal budget. So
What's the difference between those pilot payments and what it would have been if they had paid for the taxes on the land improvements?
I mean, you'd have to do the difference between conventional taxes and the pilot payments. There's 9 different pilots. You'd have to do calculus on each of those 9, which I don't have the data here now.
Where on the website is this slideshow?
This is probably on the finance page, right?
Yeah, there was a finance committee meeting where this presentation was first done by the township manager. That page is updated with the presentation, but I can send that out. I'll probably include it in the next newsletter going out to the town.
The fire study is also on our website. It's like 122 pages for anybody who's interested, as well as my memo to the chief.
One question. How many policemen are there? Police people, persons?
So the table of organization on paper says 120 police officers in the department, sworn police officers, including rank and file and superior officers. We were down to 113 last year. We've had 3 people leave for one retirement and 2 for other reasons. So we're down to about 110.
One more question.
Yeah, thanks. I'm loud. I don't need the mic. I'm glad my fellow resident there said the word committees. That's very important to me, and I stopped by the office the other day. I wanted to meet you, sir. I wasn't able to. I would appreciate understanding the process for populating committees, because as a senior citizen, I was horrified when I got this package of committees to learn that there are currently all vacancies on the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. There are no members of the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee. There was supposed to be a Senior Citizens Center, which got scuttled, and from my understanding, the new space is supposed to be converting a couple of little offices in the municipal building, which is not a senior center by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know what it is, except maybe retrofitting a couple of tiny, dingy offices. That's not a senior center in which you can have any kind of valid programming for seniors. So I'm perfectly happy to volunteer to be on a committee. I think the town should do outreach. Another committee that has like a bunch of vacancies is the Civil Rights Commission. That's just troubling. And I would like to see the town do outreach so that people who want to be activated can volunteer their time and sit on these committees so that we can engage with you and you can understand what our needs are. Because people call me angry. I'd like to describe it as passion. And I would like my fellow senior citizens who are passionate and who are friends of mine to have buy-in so that we can explain and articulate what it is we need through a committee process and not have to read on the website. After careful consideration, it's not the best use of taxpayer money to renovate the space in the United Way building, so we're going to just shove you into a couple of crappy rooms in 205. Sorry for my language. But anyway, that's my spiel. I really would appreciate the town being proactive, and by the town I mean the administrators, being proactive about engaging us, because obviously we're here because we care. And so I would love to volunteer to be on one, if not many, committees, as would other colleagues of mine.
So,
Liz.
Okay. So the Senior Citizens Advisory Committee, that my understanding is that the former, the way it was organized before, it was disbanded essentially at in the middle of the last administration. And when we were looking through the committee, the advisory boards and committees, noticed that one was inactive, right? And I was told that it was basically disbanded. And so, but I do think that it would be behoove us to look to see if we should reconstitute that, maybe look at the focus of it, the makeup, and so I would love to talk to you about it. I actually, in the at-large presentation, I include a slide encouraging people who are interested in volunteering to please apply. And we are actually, we're very behind. I mean, it's a little embarrassing, quite frankly, but I think there is a need to really step up on the appointments, and not only that, make sure that it's very clear what the purpose of these committees are, what their responsibilities are and the roles, and make sure that the council actually does reach out and get, solicit feedback and, discuss what's actually received from those committees. So
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you.
If you don't mind, I'd like to just clarify something on the Senior Citizen.
Oh, Bob Russo.
Senior Citizen Committee was the one I was liaison to. Mayor Spiller killed the committee. The entire committee quit. All 9 wonderful members quit.
So I've heard.
I could not help get it started again because the mayor was at odds with me. primarily in council. But it's a dormant committee which you ought to start up again. There's a lot of senior citizen groups in town. They have a huge problem with not getting enough money, not just the senior center, but not getting enough money for senior services. It's been sort of a neglected stepchild. Because of my age, I could serve on it. I'm willing to serve on the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee with you if you could reconstitute it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bob.
Okay, sorry, so I'm doing a quick time check at 7:34. I mean, I think we could stay over a little bit, but I do want to move on to the next presentation because we do have a lot more. So I'm going to turn it over to Jake Neiman. Thank you, Mr. Moore. Thank you, everybody, for the questions.
If you're not, cheery. If not, it's fine. It's just got a little more visual. That's fine. Don't worry. There we go. Hi everyone. My name is Jacob Neiman. I'm the Complete Streets Director for the Township of Montclair. Brief note on the last presentation, my other municipal government hat is tax assessor, and that was the is tax assessor, and that was the most cogent and accurate discussion of a revaluation by a township manager that I've yet seen. And so kudos to Manager Mark. So my role in town is the Director of Complete Streets. Complete Streets Director is a new position in the municipality. Just about a little under a year ago, it was adopted, and the Department of Complete Streets was created at the same time. That came about because the mayor and council, both the prior one and current one, have seen the necessity of serious action to address the unsafe nature of our roadways and our streets. The process started with the adoption of the Vision Zero Task Force, which you may all remember, that existed with a multifaceted goal of 1, ending serious injuries and fatalities on Montclair streets, and 2, revising and updating the township's Complete Streets Ordinance. Montclair was the first municipality in the state of New Jersey to adopt a Complete Streets Ordinance back in 2009. As people who walk, drive, and bike around our community today, I think you see how effective it was. I thought that was going to get a little more something. Our streets are not currently complete, and so from 2009 to the present, there have been a series of starts and stops and starts and stops and successful and less successful movements on improving the condition of our streets and roads. The most recent adoption of that is the new Complete and Green Streets Ordinance adopted by the mayor and council. The goal of that ordinance was to provide real teeth and real action to the municipality's efforts at completing our streets. One of the takeaways and part of the reason the ordinance took the form it did and created the role of Complete Streets Director is in an environment where complete streets were not any one individual's priority, it fell by the wayside. It became something that just wasn't prioritized. By creating a position whose sole responsibility is to make sure it works, you eliminate that point of failure and you ensure that there's an individual cop on the beat making sure that the work gets done. So this brings about a question of what is a complete street? A complete street it's not about curbs or striping. It's not about what is going on the street and off the street and sidewalks. It's about making sure that every use of the street has a place on that street. What it means is that we account for the ways folks actually use our roads and sidewalks and streets, not just the way we have been assuming they do. So I've got 3 kind of examples here that I'd like to highlight, and I think it paints a really good picture that Montclair streets have always been streets that have served many purposes. Going back to the oft-discussed Nolan Plan in 1909 and the much more recent SAFE Plan, Streets Are for Everyone, from 2017, you can see that there's a consistency in how we look at our streets, right? We model them out as public places that need to accommodate different uses. The art in the center, courtesy of the Montclair History Center, I appreciate them letting me use it, is by a Montclair artist, Vincent Tango, and it shows his recollections of Pine Street and his youth. I think what's interesting about all of these examples is they don't show streets dominated by solely cars. They show streets as multifaceted, dynamic, and accounting for different uses in different contexts. So especially the Nolan plan, it details the differences between a small residential street and Bloomfield Avenue, where it highlights the need for multimodal transit in the form of trolley cars. Whereas the plan from the SAFE plan talks about setting aside space for bike lanes, parking, and sidewalks. What I'm trying to get at is that complete streets are not a novel concept. It's not new to account for these multitude of uses here in Montclair. It's actually returning to that legacy and history. What's new about it is we kind of have to be a little more intentional. When you were setting up a complete street in 1909, you could just have a street and the trolley cars are on tracks and so pretty easy to avoid. The horses have eyes and so likely aren't going to walk into you, and the people walking around are going to do their best to avoid you. Today, cars make that a lot more difficult. There's a lot more private automobiles. And so the way we've adapted is we've made sure that the space we set aside is more protected, right? That may mean a protected bike lane. That may mean parking in between the bike lane and the people. Complete streets, though, aren't just about bikes. It's also about making sure that if you need to drop your parents off at a doctor's appointment or run into a shop with your child in a stroller, that you can do so safely and easily. It's about making sure that folks who have wheelchairs are able to get into and out of their, get around their community the same way as anyone else. I live on a street that is a senior home on one corner, and unfortunately I see a gentleman on an electric scooter pretty frequently riding through the street because the sidewalk isn't sufficient, right? That's not acceptable, that's not okay. It puts them at risk, and it makes it difficult for us to get around our community. And so complete streets is just about making sure that all folks using our streets have a home. I kind of touched on this earlier, but the why now? Unfortunately, following the COVID-19 pandemic, there was a massive increase in pedestrian fatalities especially, but traffic violence more generally. And the state of New Jersey was particularly hard hit by that. It has been impacted by changes in patterns of enforcement, and actually the way we can enforce traffic safety laws in the state of New Jersey. New Jersey doesn't allow, for example, automated enforcement, which means that you need a police officer to pull you over to enforce that traffic law. That's something the Montclair police are doing all the time. They've issued thousands of summonses in the last year, but as we all know, it's not nearly enough. It's not enough to keep our streets safe, and it's not enough to be at the intersections where we need them. Literally today, I heard from my office, which overlooks Claremont Avenue, a car crash. Someone was hit, and then the driver there was a crash, and one of the drivers just drove off. Unfortunately, couldn't see it. I think the driver returned, but in my office. So traffic violence is happening, crashes are happening, and we need to do something. In addition to this, the township, as part of its efforts, applied for and received a Safe Streets for All grant. That's allowing us to create what's called a local safety action plan. I'm going to get into that a little bit more now. I'm borrowing the slide deck from the Safe Streets for All folks because they did it already, so why would I try to change it? So the Safe Streets for All grant and local safety action plan, the goal is to improve our ability to get around town safely. And that's for cars, that's for bikes, that's for pedestrians, that's for kids, that's for everyone. It's to incorporate data and make sure that our process for getting this work done is data-driven and not just based on how we think things should be, but rather looking at where are the most dangerous intersections in town, dangerous streets in town, situations where there are particular risk factors or underinvested communities, and make sure we're putting our interventions in those locations. It's to reduce and eliminate roadway fatalities and serious injuries on Montclair streets. And as part of this, we're also doing demonstration projects, which are going to allow us to pilot some of the interventions that we may see down the line. So the way we're going to go about doing all this is what's called the safe systems approach. It's a similar idea to a concept called Vision Zero, which came out of Sweden. But the idea is that you do a bunch of small things that together lead to big changes and avoid individual risks. So it's not just about driver education. It's not just about enforcement. It's not just about infrastructure. It's about all those things together. One of the big parts of this was gathering information from residents and stakeholders in Montclair. They did focus groups and found out that a lot of these things that you're probably all thinking are the way your neighbors are feeling. Key takeaways were people want to promote a people-first street culture, right? We want our spaces to be for people. Places for people are a lot more pleasant to be in. They're places you feel safe and want to spend time. We want to calm people down in like a literal sense, but also from a traffic sense, and slow people down, because speed is a massive contributor to unsafe streets. The difference in the likelihood of you being alive after getting hit by a car going 25 miles per hour and 35 miles an hour is massive. It's huge, and we don't want anyone dying. Folks want to make sure pedestrians are safer and cyclists are safer getting around town, and improve mobility for folks like seniors and those with different abilities. It's also about advancing equity and making sure that throughout Montclair, everyone's being able to benefit from these changes, not just in small pockets. Some of the most interesting data, I think, came from showing what folks actually, how folks get around. So the response shows that folks' current mode of travel, about 47% of respondents travel by car, drive around primarily, but 37% walk and 10% cycle. And so if you add those up, that basically matches the car-oriented transportation. You've also got folks who take the bus and train. Montclair does not have as much transit as it did when the camp was operating, but we are still one of the most accessible from a public transit perspective municipalities in the state of New Jersey. And our pretty dense street grid is a remarkable asset in making it a community you can walk and bike around, especially when you feel safe. I can't tell you how many folks I've talked to who say they used to ride their bike around Montclair. They just don't feel safe doing so anymore. And they used to do so because it's a community that has an incredible opportunity to be a place where folks walk, bike, ride a scooter to get around. They need to feel safe to do so. In doing this research, the folks working on Safe Streets for All also asked, like, how do you want to get around? So that's what you did. What do you want to do? And the data was very clear that folks want to be able to walk more, they want to be able to bike more. They drive enough already, and so Complete Streets enables us to get them to a point where they feel safe walking and biking around. Folks would also like to take more transit, and being able to solve that last mile problem, right? Getting to or from the bus stop, getting to or from the train station, making it a more bikeable, walkable community is a key part of that. Another key consideration is we often think about accessibility as being able to get close to your destination in a car. It's really more all-encompassing than that, right? And being able to get around by transit, where a significant share of people with different abilities rely on those services because they can't drive, or being able to walk or take their wheelchair directly to their destination would be an even greater asset than a parking spot right in front of the destination. The research also asked people how folks feel from like a safety perspective, and when do they feel safe in town? And primarily, they don't feel safe walking. A significant share don't feel safe walking. The majority don't feel safe cycling. And a significant share, about 20% of folks, don't feel safe driving. And I think part of that comes from when we have incomplete streets, not to be too literal. Different road users don't have a place they can call home. A cyclist can't stay in the bike lane, a pedestrian is gonna try to fit where they can if the sidewalk's not well maintained, and so they may go into the street, right? I'm sure we've all been dealing with the snow, that when some of our neighbors haven't necessarily cleared their curb cuts, you're now suddenly wondering, how am I gonna get to the street walking around? And so that 20% of folks who don't feel safe driving, part of it is they don't know where a pedestrian or a cyclist or a scooter rider is gonna be. And if we had a complete street that set aside the space for those different road users, we would really mitigate the risks, right? A cyclist, say someone delivering food, who is trying to get to their destination, if they have a safe, protected bike lane, you can bet they're gonna take it because they want to be safe. They wanna go home to their family. And if they have the infrastructure there to protect them, they'll use it. And so that'll mitigate the risk of a cyclist just coming out of nowhere, because they'll have a space they can call home. This is, I just thought was an interesting image, because it reflects the fact that our concerns are township-wide. Nowhere in Montclair do you see like a sudden paucity of like, oh, that part's safe. This was a map that allowed survey respondents to the Essex County Plan, which the Montclair Plan is a supplement to, but we are so good at filling out surveys in this town that I believe we got about 25% of the entire Essex County responses were just Montclair. And so there were almost 2,400 locations pinned as being areas of concern for residents or stakeholders in Montclair. And so we covered the entire municipality. There's a lot of places where people have concerns. And so what that tells us is that this really is a township-wide problem. And there are particular areas in our own neighborhood I'm sure we feel a particular concern about, and that's as it should be. It's where we interact with our transportation network the most, but that doesn't mean that there's not needs elsewhere, and this goes to the necessity of a systematic approach. A key part of the Complete Streets process is setting up a prioritization matrix to understand where do we need to focus to have the biggest impact on safety. And yeah. This talks about the overall feelings about what are the concerns. 46% were about how folks were behaving on the roads. So that's going to be excessive speeding or aggressive driving, people not following signs and not yielding to pedestrians or cyclists, as well as just like volume. Sometimes when there's a lot of cars, it doesn't feel great. Bloomfield Avenue on like a Friday night in the summer can just feel very congested and unsafe, and even if you don't necessarily have a car about to run into you, it doesn't necessarily feel great to have to weave between a bunch of folks stopped at the curb illegally parked. That being said, about 50% of concerns were specific to concerns around infrastructure and the built environment. They focused on making sure that they focused on folks' concerns about intersections not feeling safe, right? Not feeling like you have the ability to be seen by the drivers around you, or having to walk a very long distance to cross what should be a simple street because of where the crosswalks are laid out. I know at the end of my street, there's no crosswalk on my side of the street, and so I'm adding street crossings to get to my destination, which feels both counterintuitive, just in a logistical sense, but also not safe, because why should I cross more streets than I need to? So that kind of brings me to the last part of this, which is like, what are we doing about it in a very literal sense? So the Township Safe Streets for All grant is supporting that analysis of Montclair's local street network that we talked about, and it's coming up with a map reflecting, or it's gathering the data to reflect a high injury and high risk network. What those maps reflect is areas where there is increased risk of injury, right? Historically, there have been a lot of fatalities or serious injuries on, say, Bloomfield Avenue or Grove Street. But it's also looking at areas of high risk. That doesn't look at just what has happened, but it tries to anticipate what could happen. It looks at underrepresented communities that are in certain areas. It looks at traffic generators, whether that be churches or schools or transit stations. It also looks at roadway characteristics and says, this road is quite wide. It has a 35-mile-per-hour speed limit. That's going to be a contributor to a greater level of risk, so it's going to highlight that. In addition, they're developing a prioritization process that allows us to take all the data we've gathered from enforcement and crashes and injuries and deaths, and allows us to say, look, by prioritizing resources on Street A, we're going to have the biggest impact on making sure folks are safe and able to get around safely. In addition to that, we're doing those demonstration projects I mentioned. They're currently under review by the federal government for environmental review, which is interesting because the paint will literally wash off in a rainstorm, but who am I to say? That project is a supplement to the Essex County Safe Streets for All grant and local safety action plan that I've mentioned. That Essex County plan highlights 3 streets in Montclair as being in need of interventions. Bloomfield Avenue, which should surprise no one, Grove Street, which should surprise no one, and a very, very, very small part of Bay Avenue. I think I was told it was about 30 feet, but
What?
Bay Avenue, down by the hospital. No, Bay Avenue. It's a very small section of road by the hospital. Yeah. Yep. And so the township has some concerns about the county's plans for Bloomfield Avenue and Grove Street and doesn't necessarily believe they are sufficient to what is needed to make sure those places are safe, and we're going to be advocating heavily for greater intervention in that, but we are glad that they are number 6 and number 9 on the county's local safety action plan, which means they are aware that it's a problem. Now, the municipal efforts include the updated Complete and Green Streets Ordinance passed by the Mayor and Council, the creation of the Department of Complete Streets and the Complete Streets Oversight Board, and then there's been a ton of just work that has happened piece by piece, so it doesn't necessarily get the scale of it is not necessarily evident. But the Mayor and Council have been doing a huge amount of changes in speed limit changes and putting in stop signs and rapid RRFBs, the flashing yellow lights at crosswalks. And so this map reflects the changes done just in 2024 and 2025. And so all the red stop signs are new stop signs, multi-way stops in areas that didn't previously have them. It's not necessarily a 100% increase, but it's dang close. The yellow dots are reflecting the delineators you may see around town, the little cones at intersections, and the yellow triangles are the rapid reflecting beacons. So that map is only as of July 2025, and so there's been more since, but this just kind of gives a sense of the scale. And beyond that, there were, in the last few years, school zone speed limits were adopted over a huge swath of municipality. We have a ton of schools. We're pretty small, and so that 20-mile-per-hour speed limit is over a significant share of our roadways. And beyond that, we're looking at how we can continue to change speed limits. Grove Street only recently became 25 miles per hour, and we're working on addressing the rest of the 25-mile-per-hour limits, or greater than 25-mile-per-hour limits in town. Unfortunately, those are all on county roads, and so we need the assent of the county to change that, but that's something we're working on. And then in a couple of specific projects, there's a NJDOT-funded effort to install chicaning and traffic calming on Upper Mountain Avenue between Watchung Avenue and Jerome and Seneca, so just in this neck of the woods. And chicaning. So people, when they drive on long straight sections of road, tend to do so quickly. It's just natural. What a chicane is essentially an artificial turn, forcing you to stop going straight and therefore stop going fast. So there's going to be a chicane on a stretch of Upper Mountain to force you to go a little bit to the left and then a little bit to the right. And the point is it slows you down because it takes you out of that quick, long, straight stretch of roadway. It's not removing any parking because some of the parking is just going to shift to the other sides as part of the chicane. And so it's kind of an all good things situation. And then for the stretch past, I believe Bellevue Avenue, there's too high a density of intersecting roadways, and so they're not going to be doing chicaning there. What they're going to do there is they're going to install some speed humps as it approaches the county road. They're going to be installing speed humps as it approaches the county section of Upper Mountain Avenue. And so that project is funded by a grant from the NJDOT and anticipated this year. There's traffic calming work being done on Gates Avenue in the section around South Mountain Avenue, including the installation of a four-way stop. And there's streetscape improvements being done to Maple Street as part of the CDGB block grant, which is funding from the federal government for local projects. And then the township mayor and council just appropriated the funds for engineering work on the design and early efforts in a bike lane along Harrison Avenue and some traffic calming efforts along Harrison, Cedar, and I believe
Orange Road.
Orange Road, the municipal section of Orange Road. And so there's a lot that's been done, there's a lot that's being done, and there's a heck of a lot more that needs to be done. And so that's kind of where we are now, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Two, if I may.
Please.
One is, what's the best, so I have some concerns about speeding on Valley Road in Upper Montclair, despite 12 limit, people are still doing 30 miles an hour. What's the best way to bring them to whose ever attention? Our first ward counselor said we should call the police and ask them to enforce the speed on that. But what, with you in your position, what do you suggest?
Yeah, so kind of the name of the game in this is necessary but not sufficient, right? And so calling the police and saying we need enforcement is necessary, it's not sufficient. Calling my office or emailing me and saying, hey, Jake, I've got concerns about this stretch of road is necessary, but not sufficient, because I can't just change what's going on Valley. I need the county to agree with me. I need the resources in place to install whatever interventions need to be there. And so you coming to me helps me when I'm talking to the county say like, look, I'm getting tons of residents who have concerns about Valley Road. You going to the police and saying, hey, we need enforcement, that's gonna help them enforce in that area and know that they need to put resources there. But two, the literal writing of the violations actually contributes to the understanding of a need for intervention, right? It's this sort of cycle where the enforcement tells them there's a problem rather than realizing there's a problem and acting to stop it. And it also goes to letting the mayor and council know you have concerns, because it helps them advocate with our county partners in the meetings they have. And then it also helps to go to the county commissioner and executive and say, hey, we need intervention here, because they are county roads and ultimately they have a heck of a lot more power over them than we do, right? We can ask for things, but they do need to work with us on them. And so all of those things should be done, and I realize that puts a lot on you as residents. I understand that, but we've all gotta do what we can.
My other question concerns what role, if any, you in your position have with new site plan approvals. And I'm thinking specifically of the plan for a swim center on Valley Road. And I'm going to go and give my anecdotal observations about traffic and pedestrians in that area. But do you, or the town council, view you as having a role in those kinds of questions that come before the planning board or the board of adjustment?
So Councilor Harrison will be able to provide a detailed answer on what my legal standing is in the structure, and my understanding of it is not anything formal. That being said, I fully intend to provide feedback to the Zoning Board of Adjustment and the Planning Board when they need it, request it, or when I think it's vitally important, much like how the fire department will send a memo when they have a project that they have reviewed and have thoughts about. And so the municipal land use law is pretty clear on what's required to be considered, but I'm more than capable and enthusiastic about sharing my thoughts with them.
Yeah. I highly commend the four-way stops on these intersections.
They're great.
It's so much better than the red light, flashing yellow light things, because no one knows how to follow those things. But they're great on South Fullerton, North Fullerton, all those. I encourage that.
So my one note on the no one knows how to follow. That sometimes is true, but it's also sometimes indicative of folks being uncomfortable in an environment, right? And that discomfort actually often makes you a safer driver. And so I'm not saying we should be replacing the four-way stops, but in environments where you... Agreed. But in an environment where you feel uncomfortable and you have to take a second beat to be like, wait, what do I need to be doing here? You're driving more defensively. And so one of the... One of the key parts is making sure that you're like taking a beat, paying attention, and going slow. And this four-way stops do help that.
I live on Watchung where the regular light was put in.
Right.
Every month we had an accident for like 4 or 5 years. And they finally put in a real traffic light where everybody stops. And now we don't have accidents.
You mean Watchung Plaza?
No, Watchung and North Mountain.
Oh, okay.
Top of the hill.
Top of the hill.
I believe Frank in the back.
Yeah, good question. We've talked about the issue of fire response times in town, and we're altering our fire structure in some way going forward. How does Complete Street handle the capacity of our streets to handle emergency wraps and response?
Yeah, so most of the interventions that we would be dealing with have a marginal, in a matter of seconds, if anything, impact on fire department response. And so you can also design projects in specific ways to ensure that vehicles necessary for emergency responders are not impacted the way other drivers would. So the classic example is using speed cushions instead of speed humps. A speed cushion, I'm sure you've seen them around, are those speed humps that have brakes in them. Those brakes are actually designed for wide-axled vehicles like fire trucks, ambulances, to be able to drive over them at speed while not impacting the vehicle itself. And so there's certain changes you can make to ensure that emergency response is not inhibited in any material way. That being said, Complete Streets doesn't just mean less efficient or slower in like a negative sense, because any street that's well designed is going to make sure that by, say, having more cyclists rather than drivers, you're actually eliminating cars from the road, and fewer cars on the road actually means that you can get to where you want to quicker. The capacity of a bike lane, the capacity of a sidewalk is actually far greater than the capacity of a street with cars, because the amount of space we take up as a cyclist or a pedestrian or on a scooter or a wheelchair is far less than that car takes up. And so you can see real material gains in throughput by shifting a relatively small number of trips from being individual passenger vehicles to bikes or buses or whatever it may be.
Yeah, we were looking on our phones here to see what chicaning was. Just from a budgetary standpoint, is that as cost effective as a speed hump? Because the speed hump, I mean, in my experience, really does slow you down, as opposed to, I guess I need chicaning explained in a sense, because when we look on a phone, we can see the curving that you're talking about, but is that strictly paint, or is that like repaving? What is that? Because again, like from an economic standpoint, which is the more cost effective? Because to me, the speed hump is a super deterrent to speeders.
Yeah, so it's all contextual. There are different versions of chicanes. Some chicanes are just paint. Some chicanes are you fully change the curb and have physical barriers in the way. The specific one on Upper Mountain Avenue is painted chicane primarily, but they will have those plastic flexible, those plastic bollards. And so there will be some physical barrier there, but it's not the cost or expense of, say, putting in a whole new curb. With regards to the specific cost versus a speed hump, a speed hump may be cheaper and may also achieve the goal of lower speeds, but it may have other effects or impacts that make it inappropriate for a particular environment, right?
Like noise?
Yeah, things like noise, but also to traffic patterns, right? Having a car slow down to go over a speed hump, they often will then accelerate immediately afterwards to get to the next speed hump. And so you're creating a cascading effect on the traffic. You are slowing folks down, which is good, but it can lead to weird traffic patterns, whereas the chicane allows folks to much more gradually handle those areas while also lowering their speed. So you don't necessarily have the same impacts to driver behavior.
And is there any sort of technology that would allow for like a camera that could capture a speeder in the same way that like in Los Angeles, they have red light things, and friends of mine have been caught red-handed. They'll send you a picture. Here's you running a red light. So is there any sort of technology where that would be able to be implemented? Because people, you know, if chicanes are put in on Upper Mountain, they're going to go to Highland. They're going to do other, you know, things to avoid and just find a different way to fly down the street. So I guess, like, I've always thought about that. Is that a possibility to do that type of technology?
So there's multiple answers to that. The first answer to that is in the state of New Jersey, automated traffic enforcement is currently illegal. So in the state of New Jersey right now, no. The mayor and council are having an ongoing conversation about the appropriateness of municipal efforts to encourage the state to re-allow it. But that's an ongoing conversation there. So like the technology, yes, it exists. In New Jersey, it is illegal to use for traffic enforcement, and it's an ongoing conversation amongst the governing body about whether it's appropriate for Montclair.
Thanks.
Having reduced injuries and fatalities is wonderful success criteria, and I've noticed a huge difference in all the improvements in town in recent years. Do we also look at the number of kids who walk and bike to school, and are we trying to increase that? I have kids that walk and bike and bus to school, and sometimes parents still feel very unsafe to let their kids do that. I wonder if that could be success criteria we track.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a goal, right? The specific goal of serious injuries and fatalities being eliminated is drawn from the ordinance and the Vision Zero task force and the efforts there. But one of the very positive externalities I hope for and expect and will see, right, is an increased use of bikes, walking, getting around by kids, because there's a book that talks about it, but it basically talks about how big streets to children are essentially giant walls, right? If you live north of Bloomfield Avenue, until your kid is quite old, you're not really going to feel comfortable having them walk across that street by themselves. And that walls off some third of our community to them, right? It makes it difficult for them to visit friends, makes it difficult for them to get to or from school or parks. And so any efforts to improve safety and allow kids to get around our community in a way that they feel safe, their parents feel safe letting them get around that way, increases their independence. It allows them to learn and grow in such fun and interesting ways. And so it's definitely a goal to increase their use for getting to school. It also lessens traffic. If you're not driving your kid to school or they're not on a bus, like, there's less traffic. It's all great. Mr. Scott.
Yes, what's the process to correct a modification? Say, for instance, on the corner of Orange Road and High Street, they created an extended curb.
Yeah.
It may save the pedestrians, but the individuals driving cars have to go into the other lane when they make a right-hand turn. And we've had several accidents at that intersection because people coming down High Street, when they're engaged with someone trying to come up High Street, they have to go so far into the other lane that it causes a lot of confusion, and it has caused a number of accidents. As a matter of fact, there's a telephone pole right there, right now, that needs to be replaced because it's been hit. So, you know, not some, but if you have a fix, I guess, in some regards that's not working, how do you reverse that?
So one of the key parts of the Complete Streets Oversight Board, which I mentioned, is going to be analyzing and reviewing the projects we've done in the past and see whether, one, they're still appropriate and should be continued, right? Like, is that intervention effective and successful here in Montclair? But it's also going to look at, like, what we've done and say, do we need to change that? Do we need to do more, right? So at that intersection, Orange Road and High Street, the curb bump out is good, and part of the reason that it is there is to force you to take that turn in a situation where you are more square to the crosswalk, right? Where when you're making that right-hand turn, you basically have to look the crosswalk head on. When you have a situation where there is no divider stopping you from going into that left lane, you're kind of naturally encouraged to go into that left lane, to take the turn wider so you can do it at speed, so you can go faster. Maybe the way to address that is to put some sort of delineator right down the center of that road, which prevents you from going into that left lane to make the turn wide. It forces you to slow down and make that turn square on, which improves pedestrian safety. Now, the challenge of that particular roadway, as I'm sure you know, is it's a county road. And so we need the county to consent and agree to any of the interventions we request there. There's some that they're more amenable to and others that they're not, but that's an ongoing conversation and process of working with them so we can all work together. The county sees its roads as moving people throughout Essex County. And Montclair sees its roads as a real community resource and asset that are there to encourage folks to go to our shopping districts. Right? We've got 5 of them. It's to get to school and get around town. And so those are differences, right? They're just thinking about someone going from East Orange to Clifton, and we think about different things.
Something to consider would be putting the striping on High Street, because that's a township road.
Yeah.
So at least we can put something in place to give you an indication when you make that right-hand turn, you're not swerving way into the left-hand lane at that point. So striping could help that out.
Yeah.
But speaking of seniors, do you include seniors in your decision-making? Because that scenario that Scott is talking about, for a senior, none of that sounds good. A senior driving. Like, do you include seniors driving these cars and doing these things when the sun is going down and all that stuff? It's a different scenario.
For those who weren't able to hear, the question was basically, how are seniors incorporated into this thinking and this plan? And so they're incorporated in many different ways. So the project prioritization matrix takes into account underrepresented communities, which is going to include seniors and folks with special needs. But part of what the safe systems approach, right, that circle earlier that talked about all the different pieces, a key part of that is that we build our infrastructure in a way that when something happens, because cars are going to get into crashes, that individuals are not harmed, that folks are safe, and that the only thing that gets hurt is the infrastructure itself. And so any movement to slow traffic down, change the patterns to be safer and more intelligible to pedestrians and drivers alike are going to benefit senior drivers in that way. But additionally, by ensuring our infrastructure includes accommodations for all different kinds of road users, we're not going to make people feel like they have to drive to get around. It is obviously easier for many seniors to drive to get around, but there are also many folks who would love to be able to walk to get around because they don't feel comfortable driving, or take advantage of the transit in town that they right now don't feel safe walking to. And so seniors are very much included as kind of part of all of that, and I very much see them as a group that can really benefit from a complete streets policy, well implemented. I just want to end with one quick note that I always find interesting and I like to leave folks to think about. I reached out to the township's tax map engineer, and the right-of-way, which is not necessarily the paved section of roadway, right, but it's the stretch in front of your house that the township has some responsibility and control for, right? It's why you need to clean your sidewalks, because that's part of the right-of-way, even if it's not necessarily a roadway. That makes up about 17% of Montclair's land area. So that includes some county right-of-way, right, that the county controls, but about 20% of Montclair's land is in the public domain, and we really need to think about it as a real asset and consider what we're doing with it. Because if 20% of town otherwise was just kind of sitting, forgotten, undeveloped, and unmanaged, we would have a real problem with that. And so I'm really glad to see the mayor and council and administration are thinking about our public land and our right-of-way in really productive and thoughtful ways. Thank you, everyone.
Great, thank you so much, Jake. So while the rest of the slides are pulling up, I just want to say this is the reason why when we were amending looking at the ordinance, the policy, and incorporating it into the ordinance, the reason why we thought that that it would be good to have a dedicated person in the town level is because we know from the data that street violence wasn't abating. We knew that there were problems that we were probably not keeping track of. And there needed to be, in my mind, a way to sort of make all of these considerations, thinking about all the different users of our streets, and incorporate them into every single project, every road improvement project that's done, including, when developments are going up. So just so you know that the Complete Streets Oversight Board that was also established in this ordinance that we passed last year includes many of the people who were part of the task force, but it really just sort of systematizes this whole thing and makes it part of how we do our business and look at our roads. So that includes the engineer, that includes somebody from the police department, it includes the director of the planning department, and of course our new Complete Streets director. And so hopefully we'll be able to, keep going with what we've been doing, and there will be more opportunities. We talked about this at the last Oversight Board meeting, that there will be opportunities to engage, get more of you, wherever you live in town, engaged in how, conversations around how to make our streets safer for all users. So you don't have to be on the Oversight Board. There will be other opportunities for engagement. So I just wanted to let you know about that. Okay, so I was told that we could have a little bit more time, so I'm just gonna, the next few slides are just gonna be announcements, and you can take photos if you want. This is the council meeting schedule. There, like I said, there's one change. The next March meeting would have been March 10th, but it's been changed to the 17th. We did institute a change this year on the calendar. We're starting our meetings at 5:30, so when you see the public notices, you'll see, you should see that they start at 5:30, and normally we'll start with, an executive session, a closed session, where the council is able to meet as a group and talk about, sensitive matters, and the public portion starting at 7 o'clock. And as always, they're live streamed as well, and recordings are always available on the YouTube channel. Okay, so next, some announcements really quick. All right, like I said at the beginning, for those of you who missed it, there is the health department has been doing a community health assessment. And so this is going to be, responses to this survey are going to be collected until the end of this month. So if you haven't already, please participate. This is a way for the health department to really look at, what are the health needs, the public health needs, the health needs concerns in our community, so that they can, use that information and data to guide their planning and project and decision making. And there are flyers in the back in Spanish and English. Okay, and like I said, I wanted to encourage everyone who's interested to learn about the different committees, commissions, and advisory boards that have been established by the Township Council. Some of them were established by ordinance, others by resolution, and they all have different responsibilities. For instance, the Environmental Commission, many of their responsibilities and the way they operate is governed by state statute. There's also the planning, the land use boards, which are quasi-judicial, but we also have other advisory committees like the Parks and Recreation. The Civil Rights Commission was actually established by ordinance. So you can just go to the website and fill out a form. That information goes to the clerk. And whenever we have the openings on the various committees and advisory boards, we ask the clerk for volunteer interest forms and resumes, and we look to see, what is needed on that particular committee and advisory board. And there are a few key openings a few committees that we're trying to fill. There's one opening on the Complete Streets Oversight Board because Jake was actually he was one of the public members of that oversight board, but of course he moved on to greener pastures, and he's directing the thing now. So we need someone, a resident who is interested in these issues and maybe has some experience in this field. So that's open. We have one opening that just recently came up on the Environmental Commission, and that's going to be I believe that's going to be an alternate position, and that's a really important, obviously, very, very important advisory and commission, actually, for the town. And we have a number of openings on the Civil Rights Commission. And if you have any questions, please reach out to myself or your ward counselor or Councilor Harrison. Real quick, Shred Fest is coming on April 25th from 9 to 1 in the George Annis Annex parking lot. It's free for all of you Montclair residents. And it's, just bring your sensitive documents to recycle. You can bring up to 4 boxes or paper bags of personal paper documents, up to 20 pounds each. And this flyer also says paper clips, staples, envelope windows, all of that is fine. You don't have to take those off, but just get rid of the metal clasps and masking tape and duct tape.
Sorry, when is the date on that?
April 25th.
Thank you.
Yep. And of course, there's this annual Earth Fest, which is on South Park Street between Bloomfield and Church, and that one's going to be on April 26th. So that's really fun. They're going to have a bunch of, eco-friendly vendors and games and demonstrations, and they usually have, electric vehicles on display, and it's a really lively community event. And also in March, actually closer, before Earth Day, March 18th at 7 o'clock at the Firehouse on Pine Street, there's going to be a kickoff for Montclair Bee City. So last year, the council, we passed a resolution approving that the township be designated as a bee city under this program, Bee City USA. And so on March 18th, the township, Northeast Earth Coalition, which is a nonprofit here in town, and the Garden Club of Montclair, which is actually celebrating its 100th birthday, right, this year, are all joining up and are going to talk to attendees about, local pollinator gardens, how you can make your own spaces, no matter how small, friendly to wonderful insects like native bees and butterflies and other pollinators. Okay, and I also wanted to add, because a number of people have come to me with concerns, and this has been a topic of discussion at council meetings. We do have immigrant communities, people in town, families with mixed immigration statuses. It's impacting, our families here in town with kids. And so I wanted to just remind everyone that last year we did put up a page on our website, the township website, with resources for immigrants in Montclair, New Jersey. Links to organizations like Make the Road New Jersey and ACLU that have Know Your Rights information. I also wanted to share a couple of other resources. One is one that I recently found out about, the website of the New Jersey Consortium for Immigrant Children. It's really useful. It also, that website includes a power of attorney form, and information about that for people who have children and are at risk of being detained and deported, so they can plan for, who's going to take care of their children if something happens to them, which that it has happened and it is happening. Okay, so Montclair is not immune to this, and so we did want to share this information. AAPI New Jersey also has a bunch of resources, Know Your Rights trainings, and what to do if you are participating in as an observer, if you encounter anything, what you can do, and safe ways of sort of getting involved. Okay, and finally, I think this is my last announcement. Just wanted to remind everybody that the state has several tax relief programs. Senior Freeze, which is for residents, it says residents born before 1959, or permanently disabled residents who receive Social Security disability payments as of December 31st of 2023. There's also the Anchor program, which is for homeowners and renters, and Stay New Jersey for senior homeowners age 65 or over. There are specific criteria for, if you can apply. Some of them have income, limitations, which are actually pretty high. Like the anchor one is homeowners earning $250,000 or less, renters earning $150,000 or less. And the state of New Jersey is for 2024 income below $500,000. So we don't have the information yet because I think we're still we're waiting for specific information to come from the state, but just wanted to remind everyone of these programs, and we'll be sharing more details as received.
I got $400 from this.
Yeah.
That's a rental.
And the great thing is there's one application now. Oh. Yes.
Do you want to add the increase to the state and local taxes that you can develop moving forward in the 2026 big beautiful bill? The increase in the state and local taxes, moving it up from $10,000 cap, I believe, up to $40,000. You might want to add that to that.
Okay. Let me talk to you after you send it to me, and we'll include it. Yes.
What's the status of the Montclair Trust Act?
So the Montclair Trust Act is something that was presented to us a couple of meetings ago, and what I can say is that Councilor Harrison and I are working through, developing a document, and we'd like to present it for at least discussion to the council at the next meeting, March 17th.
Will you be presenting it as an act or resolution? That's what I was going to ask.
Yeah, so we were actually just talking about this. And this is my opinion, and this is, I think we were having this discussion. I don't know if some of you know that the state legislature is, what I was told by some statewide advocacy groups, they're planning to take action on the two bills that did not get signed by Governor Murphy on his way out. And so one of which was to codify the Immigrant Trust Directive, and the other one has to do with data. And so I believe that the legislature is planning to take action on those within the next month and a half. So, but I think we do need to do something to address, our own community. And so we're going to discuss further whether or not it makes sense, given the timing of the state actions that appear to be imminent, and we don't know exactly what those are going to look like, whether or not it makes sense to more immediately pass a resolution with a policy or proceed as an ordinance, which may or may not have to, that we would want to change soon after.
Councilor Anderson, I don't understand the process or protocol of it, but if it was decided to wait in terms of enacting something, we're waiting for the state. Is there anything that can be done in terms of the Montclair Police Department and the municipality and public buildings and institutions that could be done without, if you're waiting to pass an act?
And data collection.
Yeah,
So
we're all concerned about that.
Right. The draft that is pending right now that we're working through includes language about prohibiting access or use of our public buildings for civil civil immigration enforcement purposes, and access to data as well. And the question is, we are being asked to put forward an ordinance, which takes a bit more time. It takes an introduction, and then you have to wait a few weeks, and then a second reading and public hearing. A resolution is a policy that can be implemented more quickly, and so that's.
But what teeth does that have, a resolution? No. That's like saying, but it's not doing. Is that correct?
It's a policy, it's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to stop. Please, come on. From my perspective, whether it's an ordinance or a resolution, you're right, an ordinance is a law, but either one needs to have strong enforcement mechanisms. And so I think one of the things that we can do with a resolution or an ordinance is, one thing that I was talking to Councilor Harrison about, is require that the departments, the township, put in place policies that require these things. And if the policy is not followed, then that would be, a violation and consequences.
I mean, there probably is not a great deal of practical effect. I view it as a timing. I think ultimately we need an ordinance. If we do an ordinance, the earliest it could be adopted would be the April 7th meeting. We'd introduce it on the 17th. It could pass on the 7th. It would not take effect until 20 days after it's enacted, so your end of April. And is it better to do a resolution which would take effect immediately? That's a policy that, in my view, the township employees have to follow. Absolutely agree, better to have to, but that's the discussion. It's not, let's not do anything, let's wait. It's a question of, do we want something that says, here's our policy today, and give a direction to the manager to give to the township employees as to what they can and cannot do, or do we do it through an ordinance? And we're taking, the ordinance literally would not take effect until the end of April, assuming everything.
Why would you do both? Start with the policy and then complete the ordinance.
They're going to say the same thing. I think
at least the policy then gets in effect. And then
I think, one, in terms of the police, they are following the Attorney General's, or the former Attorney General's directive, but that's still in effect. So we're covered at the police.
That is for certain that they're following the AG directive?
Yes.
That Murphy didn't sign into the act. Okay, so is it possible, I'm sorry, I don't really know the mechanics or anything, but to pass the resolution, get that done, and then get the act done as well? Is that swallowing too much?
The other thing, and resolution, there's no public hearing. This is a big deal, what we're doing.
Yes.
And I do have this view, it's important to get input of the public before doing things that are significant. So that's another argument for doing an ordinance, because there will be a public hearing. Not everyone in this room, I suspect, is in full agreement as to exactly what we should be doing. And so there is an argument doing the ordinance, so public has an opportunity rather than us just doing a decree, which the resolution would be. I think, we talked about it before the meeting. I think, when I think this through, we have some time before the meeting, on the council meeting on the 17th. I think everyone on the council, we need to do things to send a message that we're protecting our immigrants in town. It's an important thing to do. I think to some degree, even introducing the ordinance sends that message. But it's not a clear cut one or the other.
Would it be on the agenda for the next meeting, for the 17th?
I think it should be. I'll say that. Doing things on the agenda in this council is not always easy.
I understand that, I know.
But I think it should be on the agenda for the 17th.
It's not that we're not talking about the end of April.
No, we're in agreement that we would like for it to be on the agenda.
Okay, and whether or not and then it would be as an ordinance, is that correct?
We don't.
The topic will be on the agenda.
Okay.
Even if it's not, I will open my mouth and annoy everyone and say we need to discuss this.
Okay. Is there also a special meeting on the 12th because of the election on the 10th?
The meeting on the 12th is a function of, we are required by the settlement agreement on affordable housing and by the state law to adopt amendments to our ordinance dealing with affordable housing. The planning board was supposed to review that the night of the blizzard. Their meeting was canceled. We can't pass it until they've reviewed it. So we had to schedule a meeting before March 15th. And March 15th is a Sunday, so we're meeting on the 12th to pretty much do those and then have the regular meeting on the 17th.
Is that a public meeting or?
Meetings by definition are public. The
Oh, okay.
meeting on the 12th is in the afternoon, just so I could get a quorum of the council. And I didn't view that as a meeting. We should be doing a bunch of things and rather do a regular meeting where, we'll have better public attendance.
Councilors, thank you both. Thank you.
Yep. Can I just add that I'm looking at an overview of Executive Order Number 12 that was signed by Governor Mikey Sherrill on February 11, 2026, which this order restricts federal immigration enforcement, specifically prohibiting ICE from conducting operations on state property. So why would we need another ordinance?
Because we're dealing with municipal property.
Yes, we don't have any.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Again, happy to, chat with anybody outside of this meeting. So I just want to move on. We're able to stay here for a little bit longer, thank you. And we have a little bit more to go. I just wanted to show this slide, just so you have it. I wanted to share the resources that Mr. Marks was talking about. There's the information for where you can find the February 12th, 2026 Finance Committee community meeting on YouTube, and then the website information where you can find the financial information and budgets, including the salaries and things like that. So take a shot of that if you'd like. I'm also hoping that we can provide these slides after the meeting. Okay, I'm going to turn this over to Councilor Harrison now. We're going to run through a few land use type of topics, and then I have a few questions.
Okay, so I'm going to do this very quickly. The township, for years, decades in many instances, has been ignoring its public buildings. And doing what I will call stopgap maintenance, which is an expensive way to do things. We are looking at, and we have an added complication with the police department building, besides having a variety of issues and not really being designed to meet current policing requirements in terms of the holding cell they have, whatever. We are exploring options as to do that, and we're kind of getting to the point where we're narrowing it down. We've had 2 community meetings to get input as to suggestions. The options that are still, high on the list, is I guess the way to put it, are the Mills building, acquiring that building, the Lackawanna Plaza redevelopment plan includes an office building, potential of utilizing that, and there are various ways that would not involve direct township costs other than paying rent for the building. We could do a lease purchase where ultimately we would own it, but it would not be spending tens of millions of dollars to build a new building, but we would end up with a new building. There's Immaculate Conception High School, which is available, but poses a number of challenges. And there are a large parking lot between Cottage Place and North Fullerton, and a grass lot that's owned by the church that are could be used in conjunction with the high school. And there's renovating the existing buildings. And, we're looking at those. We're trying to get cost comparisons to get a sense of, as you heard with the budget discussion, as you know, with the Board of Education, the goal is to minimize the impact on the taxpayers. But doing nothing is not really a solution, because not desirable conditions that are just degenerating in the existing buildings. Just related to that, their redevelopment of the area along Bloomfield Avenue Valley Road, the area where the hotel is, that was already developed. The area on the north side of Bloomfield Avenue was declared an area in need of redevelopment except for the former office parcel, which the planning board is in the process of evaluating whether that should be designated. You have the very odd-shaped municipal parking lot across the street that need to figure out what, if anything, can be done to better utilize that space. But the township sent out a RFP. The proposals are due this Friday. We anticipate selecting the planning firm that will come up with a redevelopment plan by the end of March, or worst case, that April 7th Township Council meeting. And then I strongly encourage everyone to participate strongly. That involves decision-making. This is the police building there. What happens there, it's a key entryway to the town. You could do something very attractive there, but we need community input. I know the residents on Portland Place have had concerns, or I know who you are, and come to the meetings, and the more input we get, the better the plan will be. That's the bottom line. Public service, electric and gas, has a substation here. It's 100 years old. They need to build a new one. It needs to be near there. Where it goes, what it looks like, that's part of what will be part of the planning effort. Public service will be involved in the process. Be obviously communicating with the police department, but we need to hear from the residents of the area, and generally this is another significant portion of the town that has a lot of available space that is underutilized or not well utilized, and we can do better.
And just one thing about the RFP. I'm on the Council's Economic Development Committee, and I'm currently the chair. And we were given an opportunity to review the draft RFP before it was sent out. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to formally appoint Councilor Harrison to that committee. We wanted to make sure that, for instance, a landscape architect was going to be included on the team that develops the plan, and also make sure that there are going to be not just one, but several opportunities for public engagement that's facilitated by the firm.
And then the redevelopment area was designated along the south side of Bloomfield Avenue below Elm Street. It was done when the Bullock School was being developed, with the hope the Board of Education would be part of it and try and better integrate the school into the community. The Board of Education did not. The redevelopment plan was not utilized until the past year, when it allowed on Hartley Street, part of Mission Street, multi-story, multi-family buildings, which was not consistent with the two-family character of those streets. Developer came in, got approval for multi-family, multi-story building. Everyone agreed that the redevelopment plan was hopelessly outdated and inappropriate for the area. The township is looking at dropping the redevelopment plan, returning the side streets to an R2 zoning, and rather than the prior zoning allowing 6-story buildings along Bloomfield Avenue, to limit the height to 4 stories and provide more consistent standards regarding setbacks and parcel sizes for those. Again, there will be hearings concerning that before any of the zoning changes. It may not be a redevelopment plan, it may just be a straight zoning change. Lackawanna Plaza we largely covered. I don't know if I need to say more. It's moving slowly. At this point, I think the litigation is a major. We still have to adopt the financial agreement, which includes the pilot. I can discuss the pilot at greater length, but you know, we're progressing. The key thing I think at this point is the litigation and what happens with that. Whether the judge rules in favor of the township and the redevelopment plan. If not, we're kind of back to square one, which is not good.
And just the information, there's a lot of information that we wanted to make sure is provided on the website. You can go to the website, I've included the information there. If you go to the department under planning and community development, redevelopment plans, we've had uploaded the draft, the agreement, the approved redevelopment agreement, the actual redevelopment agreement, the draft financial agreement, presentations that have been given, and information from our financial advisor. Okay, and I think we've already covered this, the next steps. Okay, and I think that's it. Okay, so I just have a few more things. Thank you, Councilor Harrison. A few more things. Thanks for staying until. I really appreciate everybody spending your evening with us. It's kind of cozy, and I hope you found it helpful. So I always like to include some, some highlights of legislative activities. So a couple of recent amendments to the traffic and street, the vehicles and traffic ordinance. Don't know, maybe you've already noticed this. We approved a multi-way stop at Lorraine and
They're not there yet.
Oh, they're not there yet. Okay, well, it's coming, okay? Wow, okay, well, we did, so, because we passed the ordinance to have a four-way stop there in December, and I guess they're not there yet, but they're coming. And then another multi-way stop at Claremont and North Willow, which, is going to be very problematic. I live in that neighborhood right now. Also wanted to highlight some changes in a few ordinances having to do with how our government is structured. So these are just some of the the things that are covered. The water and sewer utilities are separate and apart from the parking utilities. So the change reflects that. We also in one of the ordinances established a utility which is supposed to be self-sustaining for the Clary Anderson Arena, which is currently managed by a new company. The arena is open, and I hope you go and visit. They have birthday parties there, and lots of fun things going on. But we want to help make it successful. And we also, I think Jake mentioned this, established a separate Department of Sustainability, which was under the Department of Human Service, Health and Human Services before. But both the town manager and the council felt that it was important, given our long-standing commitment to sustainability, to have it be its own separate department with a director and have all of the programs and grants and things be managed under its own department, and also completing, establishing the Department of Complete Streets. And all of this is sort of, for me, I think it's important because, the town manager, I really was hoping that we would be able to hire someone who would be able to look at the structure of, our administration and our town departments, make sure that, they're running efficiently, that operationally they make sense. And so I think this is part of that. Yes?
Just a quick question on the Clary Anderson. We own the building and the land.
Yes.
We're responsible for maintaining the building. And that's where we got into issues with the building wasn't being maintained.
It's one of the many that the township did not maintain.
Okay. So my understanding, I worked at a university, I was advisor to the hockey team. My understanding with Montclair State, they actually leased the land to a private company who built the building and maintains it and runs it. So they're getting income without any of the headache. And I'm just thinking down the road, we look into something like that? Because the building's gonna always need a lot of maintenance, it's gonna always, and honestly, I don't think cities are the best operators of an ice rink.
Okay, well, the township is no longer operating the rink. It's a new
We own the
group.
building.
We own the building. I mean, that land has been owned by the township from time immemorial, right?
Right.
You know, it was part of that whole swath that's Fortunato Field, Woodman Field, that was a whole swath along the railroad that the township acquired, and part of it was sold to the Board of Education for the fields. But, you know, it's, there are, the goal is to make the arena self-sustaining and largely get the township out of the operation of it. You know, I think this was just set up this fall. I think we have to see how it's working. I agree, there are other options that the township could do, but let's make sure this is up and running. And, you know, as I said, the township is largely out of it. And, you know, part of the problem was the company they had that was managing it was not doing it well and letting the building run down. But
And also, this council canceled a $6 million bond that was approved by the last council for, you know,
doing it.
improvements.
So the group that's running is now responsible for the maintenance.
The entire, the outside, everything.
I don't know about the outside because that gets, you have Essex Pool behind it, you have the little playground in front of it, alongside of it, and I think those remain the township's responsibility. I mean, I know that remains the township responsibility.
Just a couple more things. Thanks for your patience. Public Transportation Working Group is something that I've been very involved in. There were subcommittees established under it last year. Just in the last several months, 2 surveys were launched by each subcommittee. One was to gauge resident interest in a reimagined shuttle bus or jitney service for short trips around town. We actually received over 2,300 responses to that survey. The data analysis was completed and a report is available to you if you would like to check it out. And so what's currently happening is the subcommittee is starting to meet and formulate some recommendations to eventually present to the council and the township regarding routes, proposed routes, schedules, how, it would work operationally, and funding. And so, I think this is in the still, it's still developing, but as the proposals and the recommendations get developed, we'd like to do outreach to potential partners, like MSU, and seek additional public input. The New Jersey Transit Survey was launched at the end of November, and we got a great response to that too, over 2,300 responses. We're also, and that data is being analyzed, and a report will be shared as well. For that one, we're working with leadership of Bloomfield and Glenridge. And so they've launched their own versions of the survey based on our survey questions, which we worked with New Jersey Transit to develop. And we are going to have a meeting later in a couple of weeks to regroup and talk about next steps in getting the information to Jersey Transit in the next phase of discussions. And so, like I said, a report will be shared with the public, and there will be additional public input opportunities. Just a few other things in progress. We're still in the process of hiring a full-time, permanent township attorney. Our CFO, unfortunately, the one that we had hired back in October, resigned, and so we are currently interviewing candidates to fill that position. Some other things that are going on, a group of council members, and actually Jake Neiman and the superintendent of the parking utility did a great presentation. You should definitely check it out at the last council meeting, so check it out on YouTube. And the topic was, proposals in changing some of the fee structures for parking. The land that, is used for parking throughout our township is a commodity, and so how, some of the things that we're looking at in the face of, trying to think of other ways that we can raise revenue is looking at, the fees that we're charging now and what we might be able to do to, for example, encourage more use of the decks. And so that's something that's being worked on. Community solar, we're working on that with the firm that we approved a contract with, Cable. And we're currently also working on updates to the tree ordinance, which has been very needed, but we'll be trying to be very careful about how, enforcement and operationalizing. And our hope is actually, the people who are working on it, is actually also to be able to automate like the tree permitting process, which is, not automated. So doing so can help us, collect data and keep better track of, when trees are removed, if new trees are being planted, or we're collecting, fees that will go towards this tree fund. Okay, and I'm also working on election day polling locations to get some more sites that are not schools approved by the Board of County Elections. And we wanted to just end with a reminder that the special election is, unless that's changed in the last few hours. I don't know if it's changed, but it's next Tuesday. We have information now on the website. Please check it out. The information is both in English and Spanish. Thank you, Matt, our Director of Communications over here. Please note that if you're voting in person, there are abbreviated hours, so it's only from 3 p.m. to 8 p.m. on Tuesday. Okay, if you had already, signed up to get a, vote by mail ballot, you should have received them already. I don't think everyone has, depending on where you live. But no, has anyone not gotten theirs?
We went out a long time ago.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Okay, I just wanted to make sure. And so, yeah, but I mean, there's still, you can still, if you haven't and you want one, there's a deadline of March 9th at 3 p.m. If you don't vote by mail. And let's see, all polling sites are going to be open. This information is all on the website, so please don't forget to vote.
All polling sites are open, but there is a trick. You go to your regular polling place, that's the same, but there's going to be only one machine. Most polling places have multiple districts in them. They have told me they will have the same number of tablets where you sign in. So that should not be a problem, because machine, you're just putting the ballot in the machine, it reads it, you're done. But I would encourage you to vote closer to 3 o'clock and not wait till 7:50, because you might find a line. Just to do my polling place at Watchung School, there are about, between the 3 districts there are about 2,500 voters. If you assume 60% of the voters either aren't voting or voted by mail, that's still 1,000 people. That's 200 people an hour. That's a lot of people. The typical turnout, spread over the 14 hours. Most I think I've ever seen in the district is 100 voters in an hour. So it's going to be a lot busier than what you're normally used to. So better to vote early. And there's supposed to be an experienced poll worker at each site to make sure things are running smoothly, but there are always issues. And so vote. If you're not voting by mail, get there early is my suggestion, and do that. I'm voting at 3, both because I have to go to Carter's Point Land Use Board that night, which is Delaware Memorial Bridge, but I want to see if it's really functioning okay.
You just scared me when you described the demographics. You're saying there's going to be one machine at each place?
But the machine, all you do is feed the ballot in the machine.
Right, but I mean in the case of, like, the machine breaks. God help us.
Okay, but that's a problem in a normal election because only one district can use the machine. The county always has numbers you can call to have that addressed. I am hoping they have the machine because they have an abundance of machines not being used. It's for the entire county, so it shouldn't be a problem getting it there. That's my other reason for voting early, that if the machine is having a problem, I'll be
But I
there.
mean, there'll be some sort of contingency if something were to
Yes,
go wrong.
there always is,
Ballots
and the
would
board
still be
workers
counted.
always have the
Yeah,
number to
yeah,
call,
okay.
so
Yeah.
it's, it's better when there's the 14 hours and there's a problem at 6 a.m.
Yeah.
It's a different problem when there's a problem at 3 o'clock but, they're supposed to set up the machines in advance and know, before, have it all plugged in and make sure it's working and be able to call so they know before 3 o'clock that the new machine needs to be brought in. But I am not particularly concerned about that, but that has not been a big problem with these since they've gone to these machines. The former machines, you can pretty much count it. At least one machine in Montclair wasn't going to work in an election. That has not been the problem with these. And the worst case is, unlike before, you still have the paper ballot, even if it's not read into the machine.
Right.
The paper ballot can still be handed in.
Thank you.
Thank you. So
Thank everyone.
Thank you.